Well guys, the Electronic Entertainment Expo for 2015 will be upon us in just about a week. I've had some amazing success in the past 2 years in guessing what the major reveals would be for what I call the Gamers High Holiday. So I thought I'd make a video outlining what I believe has a good chance of being presented this year, and we can see how close I get. Feel free to laugh at me if I'm horribly off the mark. In order to best categorize everything, I'll divide all of my expectations into 4 groups. Please note that I don't necessarily follow each listed franchise, and thus wouldn't have a whole lot to say about each entry, but I'll try and be as informative as is possible. One of the biggest pieces of news coming out of E3 is that Bethesda is going to have their own ceremony this year. This marks the first time that Bethesda has shown their work outside of the umbrella of the gaming Big Three. My predictions for the company are as follows. Bethesda made big news by releasing a trailer for Fallout 4 approximately 2 weeks before their E3 conference. I believe this was done to build more hype for their conference and to get fans excited for seeing more. The trailer shown was declared to be all in-engine, which is something of a vague qualifier, so the game may still be in early stages. On the off chance that it is moderately close to completion, an approximate release date is possible. Prominent theories regarding the game include the idea that the main character is cryogenically frozen inside of Vault 111, explaining the pre-war scenes in the trailer, and that androids will play a prominent role due to the game taking place in Boston, tying it into the Institute from Fallout 3's The Replicated Man quest. Another thing to at least listen for is any news about modding, since the recent huge backlash against the Steam service for implementing paid mods into Skyrim caused Valve to scrap the idea altogether. I would not be 100% surprised to hear them try again, this time with the idea implemented at the start, since the idea was probably a beta test for paid mods on this aforementioned game. Not really a prediction, but there will be a new Doom, as teased in a short trailer on Bethesda's own YouTube channel. While I do not know a lot about the games, I would say there's a medium chance for either a new Dishonored or Wolfenstein. The former game was considered a great success, and I would say it's about time for a new entry if Bethesda is wanting to continue the franchise. Wolfenstein had a well-received entry in The New Order, but it may be a little too early to be expecting more from that franchise. And finally, I expect to hear about at least one original IP from the company. Nintendo! After a lackluster showing at E3 2013, the Big N stole the show last year with a slew of new trailers and a very entertaining show in the form of their Nintendo Direct. Here's what to expect this year. The biggest bit of news from Nintendo this year, at least for me, is its lack of news. Zelda Wii U was not only delayed to past 2015, but they're claiming that it won't even make an appearance at E3 this year. I almost don't want to believe them. Zelda trailers are always fascinating to me, and the fact that the last piece we saw from the next planned game in the franchise was from Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards over 6 months ago, I was a bit shocked to hear this news. I don't mind the game being pushed back, since I'd prefer it to be finished, but at least give us something to whet our appetites on. Star Fox Wii U is the big game to make up for Zelda's absence, and it was promised to come out before it prior to Zelda being pushed back. Considering we haven't seen anything from it outside of a barely teaser in the background of E3 last year, it's time for Nintendo to show off something big this year. Emphasis will be placed on the Wii U's potential for interesting gameplay mechanics involving aiming and flying around, perhaps with an option to do both by moving both the controller and using the sticks to steer the R-Wing and aiming lasers, respectively. I'm expecting a new Punch-Out! Punch-Out Wii was one of the few good games on the system. Nintendo recently put out a comical pre-E3 trailer involving Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aimé dressed up in Little Mac's signature pink sweatsuit, and a few dedicated Nintendo fans caught the Punch-Out victory theme backmasked into the trailer. I hope that the game will be less based on pattern recognition and more on actual boxing, but that's just me. Super Smash Bros. Will undoubtedly have something to show at E3, I just don't know what. Mewtwo was released as DLC a while ago, Lucas is on his way, and I'm expecting Nintendo to keep the challengers rolling in every 6 months or so for quite some time. They did hold that poll, seeing who the people wanted as a new combatant, but I'd say it's too early for them to have done anything with that. Roy from Fire Emblem and Ryu from Street Fighter apparently had some data placed into the game after a recent patch, so they are likely to appear in some form, though that could easily just be assist trophies. Could a new Mario game be coming out? I'd say it's likely, but not a sure thing. Nintendo was notable for not having a mainline Mario title for the last year, so we may be overdue.
Oh, great! Another Mario game!
The real question is what kind of gimmick this one would have. Mario's already explored the known universe, so they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. Barring a major entry, we can expect more information regarding Mario Maker. Could a new mainline Pokemon game be coming out? It's hard to say. Pokemon games generally take a year off somewhere within each generation, but what constitutes a generation isn't always the same in numbers. Unless something drastic changes, Pokemon will do one of three things this year. Take the year off, do the heavily rumored Pokemon Z, or go straight into Generation 7. It is too early for Generation 4 remakes since the last games were Gen 3 remakes, and I doubt they'd want to do them back to back. My bet is on Z, but all have good chances of happening. There's also a lot of rumors about the original creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri, making a rare public appearance after some supposed hackers got some information regarding special guests at E3. In the spin-off department, expect information regarding Pokken Fighters, likely some new characters. And just to spitball a few other minor predictions for Nintendo, a high chance of a release date for Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Western world, as well as info regarding Shin Megami Tensei Crossfire Emblem. A little bit of information regarding Splatoon is likely. The game is already out, but a lot of DLC was promised. And finally, a small chance for a new Metroid. Alright, Square Enix. I've been saying since E3 of 2013 that Square is due for a big revival, and they definitely paid off with big showings for Final Fantasy XV and Kingdom Hearts 3 that year. They're having their own presentation this year and will likely have a lot to show for it. Final Fantasy XV got a demo earlier this year, and another one is on the way. This puts it in a bit of a strange place, as I haven't heard of too many games getting more than one demo, and especially not one that we aren't sure of the release date for. This game has the highest chance of getting exposure, but I'm not sure in quite what way. It would seem odd giving both big demos as well as some plot-heavy cinematic trailers that Final Fantasy is known for. The game is overdue for a release date for sure though, so I'd expect at least some comment on that. Kingdom Hearts. Final Fantasy XV was one of the main reasons that Kingdom Hearts 3 has been so quiet, as the main KH team was working on it. If I'm right in assuming that 15 is about to wrap up, this means that a lot of extra time can now go into producing it. Kingdom Hearts 3 got 2 trailers in 2013, and we've gotten very little from it since. I wouldn't be too surprised to see a new trailer after such a long lull in information, and even a slight chance of a release date. The team has also been interested in porting both Kingdom Hearts HD collections to the PlayStation 4, so be on the lookout for that. Final Fantasy XIV has been considered something of a miracle game after turning itself around after one of the most horrible MMO launches in history. The game will have its Heavens Award expansion out a few weeks after E3, and I doubt they'd pass up the opportunity to show off something new. The City of Final Fantasy. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of seeing something from this game. A maybe port, maybe reimagining / sequel / I have no idea of the PSP titles. It is supposed to be coming out for arcades with a PS4 port likely, according to Square. One of my biggest complaints with the previous titles was its limited multiplayer options, since I was one of the few people I knew who had a PSP, so I'm super interested in seeing this come stateside. A surprise trailer for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, a sequel starring Adam Jensen, the protagonist of Human Revolution, appeared a few months ago. I expect to see more on this game at E3. Square has also been having a lot of luck in the mobile department, with several successful ports of previous Final Fantasy titles, as well as original spin-offs and IPs. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more announcements from them regarding phones. And to wrap up Square Enix's presentation, possible information regarding Just Cause 3 and Rise of the Tomb Raider. Since the other two major consoles, along with PC, generally end up with more or less the same major entries, I just decided to group them together. as it would be kind of silly to try and guess which games show up in which presentations. Lots of weirdness has been happening with Konami recently, and one of the biggest rumors involves Hideo Kojima potentially leaving the company after the release of Metal Gear Solid 5. While I heavily doubt this will be addressed in any direct manner, what we'll see from them this E3 is definitely in question. The game, which very well could be the last Kojima-directed entry in the series, will be released a few months after the ceremony, and I expect we'll see at least one big cinematic trailer before then. The only way I don't see this happening is if the aforementioned controversy prevents Kojima from being able to present. Assassin's Creed Unity was a huge critical flop after Ubisoft essentially released it unfinished late last year. A confirmed new entry in the franchise, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, needs to reinvigorate interest in the series before opinion of it sours. It will take place in Victoria-era London. Destiny came out to a fairly warm, but overall underwhelming reception. Many people were displeased by the amount of content and questionable story. It would seem that Bungie is interested in presenting new games into the franchise rather than an endless series of DLC like most MMOs. So I'd say there is a high chance of a new entry and a medium chance of more expansions. Halo 5 Guardians. The Master Chief Collection was riddled with matchmaking problems that, from what I've heard, haven't really been fixed even today. If Microsoft wants to keep interest in the series going forward, they need to make up for lost ground with this entry. The beta for this game was also available via the Master Chief Collection, so I'm expecting news soon. Star Wars Battlefront is almost guaranteed. We got a small trailer for it a while back, and I would hope for some actual gameplay this E3. When EA gained exclusive rights to Star Wars games following the merger with Disney, there were a lot of disgruntled gamers, who have had mixed feelings with the company's policies regarding DLC and things such as the Mass Effect 3 ending controversy. So EA has a lot to answer for if they want to win over fans. I would not be too surprised to see something new out of the Star Wars IP before all is said and done, though. Onto the Souls series. Bloodborne was guaranteed some DLC by Shuhei Yoshida, and this is the best opportunity for Sony to showcase what the DLC has to offer. There have also been a few rumors on Dark Souls 3, most of this coming from supposed leaks from a YouTube channel called The Know. Showcasing both seems a bit much to me, but it seems pretty likely we'll still be getting info on each game. Some other titles worth mentioning that I may not know a whole lot about or don't have much interest in include Rock Band and Guitar Hero, a new Gears of War, Fable Legends, Black Ops 3, Borderlands 3, Mass Effect 4, Mirror's Edge 2, Uncharted 4 A Thief's End, Forza 6. And finally, a tiny chance of Half-Life 3, just because I'd like to say I called it, if it does happen.